Wang is a weak, socially awkward boy who has never had a girlfriend, making him the target of constant ridicule and neglect from his entire class. He lives quietly on the fringes of his school, resigned to being invisible, until everything changes when his childhood friend, Shen Yao, suddenly confesses that she has a crush on him. Overnight, the attention he never wanted descends upon him. At a high school mixer attended by all their classmates, the group is playing Jenga, and when it becomes Shen Yao's turn, she locks eyes with Wang and grows flustered, causing her to make a mistake and topple the tower. According to the game's rules, anyone who knocks it over must reveal a secret, and the group immediately pressures Shen Yao to admit who her crush is. Wang begins to smile nervously, but his classmates burst into laughter, mocking him and insisting there is no way someone like Shen Yao could ever like someone as plain and insignificant as him. To everyone's shock, Shen Yao openly admits that she does like Wang, and firmly states that she is not joking, explaining that she has liked him ever since they met in middle school. Wang is left completely stunned, unable to speak, as her confession feels like a dream come true. However, the moment the mixer ends, that dream turns into a nightmare when Wang is kidnapped, dragged to a riverside, and beaten mercilessly. He does not recognize most of his attackers, but he quickly realizes their leader is Sunjun, a notorious bully who has long been obsessed with Shen Yao. Wang understands immediately that this is about jealousy. Enraged that Shen Yao confessed her feelings to Wang instead of him, Sunjun refuses to let it go, and instead escalates his cruelty by video calling Shen Yao from Wang's phone, forcing her to watch as Wang is humiliated and beaten. Shen Yao is horrified, and Wang desperately yells at Sunjun to leave her out of it, unwilling to let her suffer any further. Sunjun, however, wants Wang to feel absolute despair, calling him a worthless loser who has no right to be with Shen Yao, and demanding that Wang swear never to speak to her again. He threatens to throw Wang into the river if he refuses. Wang could choose the easy way out and submit, but instead, he headbutts the man restraining him with all his remaining strength. The blow is solid, but it causes the man to lose his grip, and Wang falls into the river below. Sunjun panics, realizing too late that he never intended to kill Wang, only to frighten him. Yet now Wang has disappeared beneath the water, and Shen Yao has witnessed everything. As Wang sinks, he does not struggle to save himself, believing there is no reason to live if he cannot protect the one he loves. His life flashes before his eyes, and he recalls a memory from middle school, when he lost all his popularity after running away from a fight and sat sulking alone near the school gate. Shen Yao had approached him then, thinking he had forgotten his umbrella, and despite his attempts to push her away, she insisted on walking home together. Noticing a cut on his arm, she carefully dressed the wound and even blew a gentle kiss on it to ease the pain. And from that moment on, Wang quietly imagined a future with her. Back in the present, as he sinks deeper into the river, Wang notices a strange glowing light below him, and knowing he will not make it back to the surface, he swims toward it. At the bottom of the river, he discovers a mysterious glowing cube, and the moment he touches it, it activates and merges with his body, flooding him with unbearable pain before pulling him through a wormhole into a strange new space. When he lands, panicked but alive, he realizes he is no longer drowning, and a system appears, informing him that he has been granted the ability to teleport anywhere within a 15-meter radius. Wang initially refuses to believe it, until he is teleported against his will into the sky above the canal, where he panics before realizing he is floating, and below him, he sees Sunjun and his men desperately searching for his body. Finding the sight strangely amusing, Wang is suddenly teleported again, this time into an empty classroom at his school. Now convinced of his power, he hears the system explain that it is now a part of his body and warns him that someone is approaching. Just as a staff member opens the classroom door, sees only a puddle of water, and leaves. Later, Wang returns home, takes a shower, and is shocked to find his phone still working when Shen Yao calls him in tears, frantically asking if he is safe. He reassures her and tells her not to worry, dismissing her insistence on reporting Sunjun, believing Sunjun is likely still panicking by the river. After hanging up, Wang lies in bed contemplating everything that has happened, when the system reappears and informs him that they are now permanently bonded, naming him the user and master of the Heredric universal system. The system activates the cube once more and pulls Wang into a macro space, revealing that despite the cube being only 3 centimeters in size, it contains an immense internal world. When Wang asks why it is helping him, the system replies that its purpose is to fulfill his deepest desire, to become king of the world. Wang begins training with teleportation, but quickly exhausts his energy and nearly falls off a building, prompting the system to warn him that teleportation is currently limited to once per minute. It then suggests a safer training method using sensory enhancement, allowing him to perceive everything within a 50-meter radius. When Wang activates it, he unintentionally sees his own room, a couple in bed, and even his neighbor bathing, causing him to feel guilty and quickly shift his focus to the garden, where he panics when a cat suddenly locks eyes with him. The system warns him again about energy overuse, and Wang passes out. When he wakes, he realizes the system used its remaining energy to safely return him home. Unable to find any information about the cube online, Wang soon receives a message from Shen Yao asking him to have lunch together, reigniting his excitement, while also reminding him of Sun Jun and the revenge he still desires. Asking the system how to grow stronger, he learns that he can absorb energy from gems, and while any stone theoretically contains energy, higher quality gems are far more effective. The system detects the presence of a gem in his garden, and with a shovel in hand, Wang teleports downstairs and begins searching, closing his eyes and using spatial awareness to scan the area until he finally locates something faintly glowing beneath a tree and starts digging into the dirt. Uncovering a bright orange pebble that looks far too ordinary to be magical, Wang grows skeptical and questions whether such a simple rock could truly hold any power. But the system confidently assures him that the stone is indeed charged with enough energy to grant him an upgrade. Trusting the system, Wang asks what to do next and is instructed to place the gem inside the inner cube. He steps into the cube's macro space and presses the stone against one of its walls. And after a few seconds, the pebble is absorbed completely into the cube, causing Wang to immediately feel a surge of strength flow through his body. The system explains that the stone has increased his strength by 2 points and his endurance by 1, adding that if he continues collecting power stones like this, he can significantly improve his combat capabilities. A few minutes later, Wang arrives at class, only to be immediately confronted by Shen Yao, who demands an explanation for what happened to him the previous night. But she quickly notices that everyone around them is watching. The entire class still remembers her public confession, and the teasing resumes almost instantly. Before anyone can fully react, a loud commotion erupts at the front of the classroom as Sun Jun barges in, and the very first thing he does is order one of his men to kick a random classmate in the stomach, making it painfully obvious that he has come specifically to confront Wang. Shen Yao is visibly shaken, but Wang calmly tells her to return to her seat. Having heard rumors that Wang is still alive, Sun Jun strides to the front of the class and demands to know where he is, and the moment he says Wang's name, the entire class turns to stare at him, with every single student immediately giving him away. Wang tries to ignore the situation, hoping Sun Jun might leave on his own, but Sun Jun locks eyes with him and begins climbing the stairs, making it clear that there is no avoiding the confrontation. Wang quietly asks the system whether he stands a chance in a fight, and it reassures him by explaining that the average combat power in the room is 5, while Wang's current combat power is 22. Reassured, Wang stands up as Shen Yao desperately tries to intervene, begging Sun Jun to stop, but Sun Jun ignores her and begins insulting Wang directly in front of her, pushing Wang past his limit. Wang apologizes to Shen Yao for allowing the harassment to continue and declares that he will handle it himself, which only enrages Sun Jun further, prompting him to grab Wang by the collar and threaten to kill him. In response, Wang grips Sun Jun's wrist and squeezes with such overwhelming force that Sun Jun flinches and hesitates, momentarily rethinking his actions, as Wang coldly warns him that if he continues harassing either him or Shen Yao, he will regret it. Sun Jun is still trying to comprehend how Wang suddenly became this strong when the teacher arrives and demands that everyone leave, forcing Sun Jun to back down to avoid police involvement. Though as he leaves, he leans in and whispers a threat, telling Wang to meet him at the North Sea basketball court that night, or something terrible will happen to Shen Yao. After Sun Jun leaves, Shen Yao asks Wang what was whispered to him, but he brushes it off, claiming it was nothing important, fakes a headache, and excuses himself from class. Later, at the basketball court, Sun Jun broods over the encounter, still stunned that Wang managed to bruise him, convincing himself it must have been a fluke and vowing to make Wang pay for humiliating him. That evening, Wang arrives at the court and calls out for Sunjun, finding him seated smugly at the top of the bleachers, laughing as he reveals that there is no way out, and that he never intended to fight fairly, having brought his entire gang instead. The system immediately warns Wang that there are 13 enemies, and that the odds are unfavorable. And when Wang asks it to calculate his chances, it shocks him by reporting only a 20% chance of victory. His confidence wavers slightly, which Sunjun notices and mocks, lining up his men and offering Wang one last chance to surrender and beg for mercy. Wang instead mocks Sunjun's cowardice and his reliance on numbers, trying to provoke him into a one-on-one fight. And although Sunjun sees through the tactic, his pride prevents him from backing down. Before he can strike, one of his men, Kong, the gang's strongest fighter, steps forward and offers to fight on Sunjun's behalf, with everyone present convinced that Wang stands no chance. Uncertain, Wang asks the system to scan Kong's stats and learns that Kong's combat power is only 10, respectable, but still far below his own. Kong hurls a basketball at Wang, but the system alerts him in time to dodge, and when Kong charges in with a barrage of punches, Wang effortlessly avoids and counters like a seasoned martial artist. Meanwhile, back at school, Shen Yao grows increasingly worried as Wang continues acting strangely and refuses to answer his phone, prompting her to decide that she must intervene somehow. At the court, Kong begins to tire, unable to land a single hit, while Wang patiently waits for an opening. And when Kong lunges again, Wang catches his leg midair and shocks everyone by delivering an electric punch that sends Kong flying into the wall, knocking him unconscious instantly. The gang is stunned as their strongest fighter is defeated, turning to Sunjun for orders. And although Sunjun tries to regain control by insisting that Wang still cannot take all of them at once, Wang asks the system for an update and learns his chances have risen to 30%. Bracing himself, Wang faces the group attack, dodging and blocking as best he can. But the numbers overwhelm him, and he is kicked from behind, triggering his fury as he turns and kicks the attacker with such force it feels as though he erased the man's entire bloodline, then hurls him towards Sunjun as a warning. Panicking, Sunjun orders everyone to swarm Wang, forcing him to leap onto the bleachers and sprint along them to create distance, before jumping down and sweeping another man off his feet. Wang is grabbed from behind and struggles to break free, but before he can react, another attacker drives a brutal kick into his stomach, knocking him to the ground. Despite the intense pain, Wang refuses to be caught off guard again, forcing himself back to his feet, gritting his teeth and preparing to face them all at once. At first, the barrage of attacks overwhelms him, but his senses sharpen rapidly, allowing him to anticipate movements, judge attacks instantly, and seize the leg of the same man who kicked him earlier, swinging him with terrifying force straight into Sunjun's face. The impact leaves everyone stunned, including Sunjun himself, who finally begins to grasp just how frightening Wang's power has become, as Wang steadily walks toward him, fully determined to end everything once and for all. However, the system suddenly warns Wang that his energy reserves are nearly depleted, and in his current condition, he would not be able to defeat Sunjun in a prolonged fight. Even so, Wang reasons that although he may not be able to win outright, a well-timed bluff might still be enough to intimidate Sunjun and ensure he never dares to harass Shen Yao again. At that moment, Wang, the boss of the South City gang, arrives on the scene and immediately begins mocking Sunjun for being beaten by a single person, openly ridiculing him and saying that if he cannot even handle Wang, then he has no right to call himself the boss of North City. As Wang watches the two gang leaders exchange insults, he steps in and makes it clear that he does not care about their rivalry and wants no involvement in their gang disputes. But Wang, having never met Wang before and eager to assert dominance, decides to prove a point by ordering his men to beat Wang up. The system quickly alerts Wang that with his energy so low, he stands no chance in a direct confrontation, prompting Wang to turn and flee, while urgently asking the system to teleport him away. Unfortunately, the cooldown has not yet finished, forcing him to keep running until he reaches the stairwell. And the instant the cooldown ends, Wang teleports and shuts off all the lights in the gym. Panic erupts as the gang members stumble blindly in the darkness, confused and disoriented, while Wang uses the shadows to his advantage, silently teleporting behind Wang and locking eyes with him before slamming him into the ground with crushing force. In a rapid blur of movement, Wang then proceeds to dismantle every single member of Wang's gang one by one, and when the lights finally come back on, Wang is the only person left standing. Sunjun is utterly terrified, but before anything else can happen, Police sirens begin wailing outside the building, as Shen Yao, worried for Wang's safety, has called the authorities. The officers attempt to force their way through the locked gym doors, while Gao urgently urges them to hurry. And inside the gym, Wang realizes he cannot afford to be caught in the middle of the chaos, especially after causing such destruction. Thinking quickly, he teleports directly in front of Sunjun and proposes a plan, causing Sunjun to immediately drop to his knees and beg desperately for forgiveness. Wang tells him he will forgive him on one condition, and just as the police burst through the doors, they see Sunjun gripping Wang by the collar and pretending to strike him. A performance convincing enough that the officers arrest Sunjun and Wang for starting the fight, believing Wang to be nothing more than an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. Before parting ways, Wang forces Sunjun to swear that he will never bother Shen Yao again, and with that threat finally neutralized, Wang leaves the gym and reflects on the battle, realizing that despite his victory, his current power has clear limitations, and that he needs to grow stronger as quickly as possible by finding more power gems. He visits a jewelry store, but quickly learns that the gems there are far beyond what he can afford, briefly considering the idea of finding a wealthy benefactor before dismissing it as impractical, and instead decides to prepare himself and head into the nearest mountain range to search for power gems in the wild. There, he locates several promising energy signatures, but each presents a serious obstacle, with one gem buried beneath a massive boulder, another resting at the bottom of a lake, and a third lying 15 meters underground, far beyond his ability to dig. Just then, the system alerts him that it has detected a cave with extremely high power stone energy, intriguing Wang enough to attempt teleporting inside, only for the system to explain that teleportation into completely sealed spaces is impossible and requires at least a 1 centimeter opening. After considering this, Wang realizes that erosion from the nearby lake may have created an opening in the cave wall, and upon scanning the area, he finds a narrow gap, teleports inside, and immediately slips on the wet cave floor, falling flat. As he regains his balance and calculates how to reach the gems, a giant snake silently sneaks up behind him, unnoticed, and suddenly lunges, forcing Wang to instinctively teleport from rock to avoid its fangs. Once the cooldown resets, he proceeds carefully on foot, and upon getting within range of the gems, he ties a rope around his waist for safety and begins mining. He successfully secures one gem and celebrates briefly, but fumbles the second, watching helplessly as it falls into the depths below, and when he uses spatial awareness to locate it, he is horrified to sense a massive presence right beside him. The snake strikes again, causing Wang to slip off the ledge, but the rope catches him just in time, saving him from a fatal fall. Though moments later, the snake misses its strike, and the rope snaps, sending Wang plunging into the water below as the serpent pursues him once more. Desperate, Wang tries striking it with his shovel, but the blows are ineffective, and the snake coils tightly around him, crushing the air from his lungs. Wang begs the system to teleport him into the cube dimension, but it is unable to do so while he is restrained, and in one final attempt, he drives the shovel into the snake's body, forcing it to release him, though the lack of oxygen causes him to lose consciousness. Just before he drowns, the system teleports him into the cube dimension, and when Wang regains consciousness, his first instinct is to merge the gems he collected, but the system suggests a better approach, explaining that out of 11 elementary power gems, 9 can be synthesized into a single advanced power gem that grants far greater strength, though the process will take 4 days. Because time is limited, the system proposes using 2 gems immediately while the rest undergoes synthesis, and Wang agrees, absorbing the 2 gems before teleporting back to the cave. When the snake attacks again, Wang is fully prepared, blocking its strike effortlessly and killing it in a single blow, appreciating the anticlimactic ease of the victory. While examining the snake's corpse, he discovers another gem of stunning quality and immediately forms a plan for its use. Meanwhile, Sunjun and Wan meet at a nightclub, where Juan fumes over his defeat and demands revenge, only for Sunjun to warn him that even if both their gangs joined forces, Wang would still destroy them. Wan, however, proposes another idea, revealing that Lu has returned to town, a name that makes Sunjun turn pale as he shouts that involving Lu would be suicide, though Wan insists on manipulating Lu into eliminating Wang rather than asking him directly. 2 years earlier, Lu left town after losing a fight to a man far stronger than himself, someone named Shuketsun, and elsewhere, Shen Yao is studying in the library when she receives a strange phone call warning her that danger is approaching. Moments later, 4 men in suits surround her, making it clear they are not there with good intentions. And when she tries to flee, one agent blocks her path, forcing her to sprint down a corridor and hide inside a locked closet. As the agents begin breaking down the door, Shen Yao trembles in fear, preparing for the worst, until the same mysterious voice tells her to turn around, revealing a glowing yellow energy mass behind her. A hand reaches out, and Shen Yao closes her eyes, bracing herself. But by the time the agents break through the door, she has vanished, rescued by Shiku, the man who warned her earlier, who carries her away using flawless parkour skills. The agents, however, are ready, and one of them pulls out a gun and shoots Shiku midair, injuring him but not stopping him. And knowing he cannot continue running like this, Shiku places Shen Yao safely behind a barrier and prepares to fight, leaping from a ledge and punching the nearest agent with such overwhelming force that the man is sent reeling, while another agent charges forward and Shiku readies himself to respond. The battle is only beginning, as Shiku punches one agent away while simultaneously fending off 2 more, his movements swift and calculated. Yet despite his precision, one of the agents eventually manages to tackle him mid-air, and with the support of 3 allies, they slam Shiku into the side of a building, dust filling the air as debris scatters, and a shockwave ripples through the street. When the smoke finally clears, Shiku stands completely unscathed, while the 3 attackers lie unconscious, though the building has suffered massive collateral damage and innocent lives were likely lost in the chaos. But, undeterred, Shiku floats out of the wreckage, removes his coat, and prepares to get serious, as the remaining agent stops wasting time and rips an entire building from the ground to use as a projectile, horrifying everyone trapped inside, only for Shiku to effortlessly catch the structure, shatter it into blocks midair, compress those fragments into a dense sphere, and detonate it in a devastating explosion that tears open space itself and sends both Shiku and the agent hurtling into a mirrored dimension. Annoyed by the sudden shift in reality and the added complication of fighting here, Shiku watches as the agent draws a gun that fails to function in this dimension. Not that it would matter against a man who just caught a building, and as time runs out, golden energy envelops Shiku, blasting the agent backward into a pool of mirrored water as time rewinds. Shiku closing his eyes and hoping that in the next loop, things might unfold differently, only for time to reset completely, as Shen Yao wakes in a library, unaware of the horrors that just occurred, sitting across from a younger Wang, who is asking for help with his math homework, the loop returning them to a peaceful moment in the past. Meanwhile, in the present, Wan continues explaining his reckless plan, noting that Lu still harbors deep resentment towards Shiku, and could be manipulated into going after Wang, under the belief that it would draw Shiku out, though Wan foolishly believes he can control Lu, prompting Guan to remind Sunjun that Lu left town 2 years ago after losing a fight to someone even stronger than him, a man named Xiu Xin, whom Sunjun vaguely recalls having some connection to Shinya. The next day, Wang waits to meet Yao for their date, growing increasingly worried when she is unusually late and does not answer her phone, until he overhears someone mention a serious incident at her apartment complex and sprints to the scene where police swarm the area, and Yao's mother sobs as she tells officers her daughter has been kidnapped, the police promising an investigation, but Wang refusing to wait, determined to find her himself. And as he scans the crowd, he spots Sunjun, sensing something is wrong, dragging him into a dark alley and demanding answers. Sunjun initially feigning ignorance until Wang punches a hole through the wall and threatens to do the same to his skull, causing Sunjun to panic and confess everything. Elsewhere, Wan regrets every decision that led him here, as Lu, the pawn he tried to manipulate, has already uncovered the scheme and now uses Juan as a literal golf tee, smashing golf balls into his face, while Shenya watches in horror from the corner where she is tied up, trying not to draw attention, but failing as Lu approaches her with cold eyes, warning her not to lie, and reminding her how he rearranged Quan's face, questioning her connection to Shiku, which she genuinely denies knowing anything about, though Lu does not believe her, citing records of Shiku risking his life for her, and questioning why he would do so unless they were close, perhaps anonymously saving her, yet finding it strange that Shiku has not appeared if he truly cared, prompting his lieutenant to advise patience and caution, since provoking Shiku without a clear plan would be dangerous, leading Lu to temporarily leave Yao alone. Back with Wang, Sunjun finishes explaining that Wang's entire plan hinged on using Shinya to provoke Shiku, and reminds Wang of the near kidnapping years ago that the public believed was stopped by a random hero when it was actually Shiku, who vanished afterward, save for the time he broke 2 of Lu's fingers, fueling Lu's obsession, and leading Wan to exploit that hatred by feeding Lu information that resulted in Shen Yao's kidnapping. Though Sunjun insists he opposed the plan, and having heard enough, Wang lets him go and heads straight to the construction site where Yao is being held, the system warning him that 7 powerful martial artists guard the interior, Wang asking if the advanced gem has finished processing only to learn it still needs 30 minutes. Time he does not have. And as he approaches, Lu's men spot him, Lu deciding that even though it is not Shiku, it will still be entertaining to torment the boy by sending his fighters one at a time, beginning at the front gate where Pablo, a martial artist with a power level of 52, blocks Wang, whose power level is only 50, warning him that the enchanted lock will kill him if forced, refusing to hand over the key under orders to kill anyone who ascends, forcing the fight to begin as Pablo's powerful punch narrowly misses, and Wang counters with a kick that fails due to Pablo's durability. But this is a street fight, and as Pablo charges again, Wang teleports a hammer into his hand and caves in Pablo's skull, knocking him unconscious. Seizing the key and climbing upward as the system warns the next opponent has a power level of 75. The next floor engulfed in darkness, where Li, a stealth assassin, lurks unseen, though Wang's spatial awareness betrays him, and when Li sneaks up, Wang casually pulls a bat from his inventory and strikes him in the groin, dropping him instantly. 2 more fighters above watching in disbelief as they prepare, Beowulf. Confident Wang will fall quickly, but when Wang reaches the next floor and sees Beowulf standing with his back turned, he attacks without warning, only for Beowulf to catch the bat and slam him into the floor, knocking the wind from his lungs, and unleashing brutal combos that leave Wang battered, his leg caught, arm broken, and body punched through a concrete pillar, until the system alerts him that the advanced gem is ready, power flooding his body, healing him, and amplifying every stat as he rises. Beowulf charging with a smirk only to be sent flying by a single return punch, the power gap now overwhelming as Wang finishes him with a black flash that sends Beowulf crashing through the wall. Lu watching the surveillance feed in fury as his expensive fighters fall to a kid, reassured only by the promise that the next 2 elites will succeed, particularly a female fighter wearing a restriction bracelet whose removal could level the building, while Wang ascends the staircase toward his next opponents as the system warns his heart rate is spiking and his mind is under extreme psychological stress. Warnings he ignores as fear gives way to resolve, because no matter the cost, he has to reach Yao.